Everything about Jade Helm is is a lie. But someone thought it up. And it's a small summer camp, send a few people out to run around and play games. And they can legally do this in the U.S. I don't know if any of you guys know this, and this is a big secret, but back since 1776, varying organizations, and starting November 10th, 1775 for the Marines, by the way, but we've been opening bases inside the U.S. and holding operations inside this country for a long time, including we've had a couple of dozen wars inside this country, starting with the Revolutionary War, and that was done a lot in and out of American cities without permission of the Pentagon. Hell, the Pentagon wasn't even built then. We had a civil war, or a war between the states, or the war of northern aggression, or whatever you want to call it. We had that at times. We had wars against the, quote, Indians, where, for the most part, of course, we, the U.S., were the bad guys. But what I'm saying is that this propaganda war over Jade Helm is a total and absolute hoax and fraud. But the purpose of it is very much like the Bundy Ranch fraud. And this is a guy that had a bunch of used cars and half-burned-out pickup trucks, and then wanted to run cattle on a sand dune in an area where nobody's raised cattle. Well, the Mormons had moved into that area outside of Vegas in the 1840s, and after a couple of months, their collective wives, since they wife swapped, that's a Mormon thing, you know, but their wives all left them, and they had to leave the area because it wouldn't maintain human life. You know, certainly, you know, I'm an animal guy. I would never, absolutely never leave a cow on a sand dune. Cows belong somewhere where they have grass, rain, water, things like that. It's bad enough that we throw them into feedlots and have them stand knee-deep in their own shit and then pound them in the head, and after pumping them full of hormones, antibiotics, drugs, chemicals of every imaginable kind, feeding them GMO corn, and then we have to eat them after this. If you haven't thought about becoming a vegetarian and a non-GMO vegetarian, it might be time you gave it some thought. Once you learn about the meat industry. But the last thing on earth I would do to an animal is abandon it on a sand dune. It's bad enough what we do to animals. There's going to be an accountability, but it's a whole other story. But because of this propaganda being put out by the phony blogosphere, who all are working for the ADL, APAC, they're all taking orders from one kind of one of Clay's conspiracies or another. So what some National Guardsman is going to be in his little uniform eating at a Panera in Brighton, Michigan, and somebody's going to come in and kill him because he's part of a Jade Helm operation, and he's bugging everybody's telephones in the building, or he's writing down their license numbers, because that's what people are going to think. You've already got crazy people on the internet, people that ought to be on medication. Maybe they ought to all be in FEMA camps, but you've got enough crazy people. And then you've got paid controlled opposition lunatics who are telling these people that they should be going out and killing American soldiers in our own country because they're all involved in a bizarre conspiracy. And this isn't terrorism. This is absolutely domestic terrorism. But it's domestic terrorism, and if you don't think it's flowing out of Tel Aviv and through the ADL and APAC, if you don't think that they're... Let me jump to one of the groups that is being organized by Alex Jones. Now, the largest veterans organization, and certainly special operations organizations in the country's veterans today, we have 2.8 million members, and we are real special operations people. I am one. I'm a combat veteran, real thing. You know, used to shoot folks. We're very much the real guys, and we have with us significant numbers, way more than anyone else, way, way more. Now, when you take and I'll call them a phony organization, and that's what's being done, representing themselves as veterans of special operations, and they're being sent out with guns to supposedly confront military on this, and it's stupid. The Jade Helm thing is simply mindless stupidity out of the Pentagon. It's a little thing, and it's meant, I really think it was meant to play into the hands of these fools. All you need to have happen, Clay, is one Mossad guy show up and shoot one National Guardsman or one of our guys, and if you don't think there'll be martial law and gun seizure, if you don't think it'll come, it's going to come. That's the whole purpose of this controlled opposition press, to provide cover for the killing of at least one American soldier. And if anybody, I'll tell you, if any American military or veterans are killed because of this, we're looking to push back. And the problem is that, and it looks like we've got somebody trying to ring in a phone.
No, I was trying, it's my fault here. I was trying to get something in here. And
it's coming in over the speaker.
It's gone. It's gone now. Sorry. I don't know what happened with John DeCamp.
John's clearly on somebody's stuff that they don't want him on your list. There's no question about that.
It's pretty interesting. I've had a lot of troubles on this, but at any rate, you're coming in loud and clear.
This is one of the things Stu would always complain about, and he was right about this. He's not easy to work with. You know, it's a minor, one of the things you and I had gone into earlier. We'll drift over this about controlled opposition. You know, Stu has this huge, huge hatred for Ted Gunderson, the guy who he said was sent to infiltrate and destroy the Patriot movement, you know. And, you know, I still like Stu. But this issue over Gunderson, first of all, let's just say this. There's this little clique here, and I deal with different things, and we work at a different level. VT is an international organization. We're only, let's say, at most about 40%, which is, American. We operate in the Middle East and Africa considerably. We've got a good-sized crew. Hell, I've got four people in Paris. Did you know that we're one of the journalists that we have front row seats at the Cannes Film Festival? I mean, but we publish in more than one language, and we're a very different thing. We've had to be. I would have liked to have been a scare porn blog working for the ADL. And, well, frankly, they never came to me with enough money to do this, I already run a defense company that's, most of our stockholders are already Arabs as it is, But maybe I just didn't get a good enough bribe offer to just sit on my tail and make up wild stories. But there's a little group here within the crazy confines of the internet. There are only probably, within the websites we deal with, there are about 80 Israeli paid trolls that are around much of the time. And it's a group of trolls, basically. And then there are, and Jeff Rentz has been a friend for a long time, but he's got people that, he's got a couple of hosts I can't deal with. So Santilli is silly Santilli. We still have the guys from Fox News, Hannity and whatever. You've got the gang from CNN, and VT does a lot more traffic than CNN does, by the way. For whatever reason, we're more fun than they are. But the other odd one is, I remember Tom Hennigan telling me that he was dating a girl from French intelligence who had a squadron of Mirage jets put in a secret underground base in Missouri, and that whenever he had a problem, he would call, and French jets would come and circle his house from Missouri, all without refueling, by the way, mind you, which they aren't capable of doing. Any guys in Missouri, find me that base, But I hear this stuff, and I'm just thinking, what did I do? Why do I have crazy people around me? I was in the Marine Corps, 48 years ago or whatever. That was a pack of lunatics as it was. Although I liked the people I was in Vietnam with, almost all of them are dead now. But that'll always be my family, as much as anything else. And but lunatics, yeah, absolute lunatics. Things we need to look at today. The Jade Helm thing is serious to the extent that someone's going to turn this into something very bad here. And whoever thought this up, needs to be horsewhipped. Absolutely. Is any of this stuff true about gun seizure? How 10 million Americans? Now, as I remember, this is what Jade Helm is supposed to be according to InfoWars. There are 44,000 UN troops being held in the Carolinas to sweep across the southern U.S. in gun seizure. There are 20,000 Russian troops being held somewhere in Louisiana. 20,000 of them, they're going to cut the country in half. There are 400,000 ISIS troops 1 mile across the border that are going to sweep in, helped by the UN, and take Texas and these other states. Now, no one has seen any of these people, mind you. None of them. The Blue Helmet Brigade. And if you don't believe what I'm saying here, go to Google and just type in UN troops, Russian troops in U.S., any of those searches, and read the stories. I've got them published in VT. We excerpted them out, and they started in 2008. But and all of these imaginary FEMA camps, they really don't exist. And the Walmarts that are going to be death camp detention centers. Oh, yeah, there's that. And it's not to say we don't have serious problems. It's just, it's the wrong people here. We do have the drug cartels. The drug cartels took over most of Texas and the southwestern U.S. long ago, buying people. And those they couldn't buy, like Sheriff Larry Deaver from Cochise County, they murdered.
I knew him. Right after I did an event here, and maybe it's just coincidence, Gordon, but I met Larry Deaver, and I put on an event to raise money for Larry, and he was killed about 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Deaver, if you want to talk about patriots, you have Larry Deaver. That's a patriot.
Yes.
Murdered by the cartels, who then took over the entire county, where the U.S., by the way, the town of Sierra Vista is the county seat. The U.S. has an intelligence command there that is the one that taps telephones, is located there. The local sheriff's department began receiving an influx of money through the Walton Walmart families, through their banks, which is laundered drug money. They got all new equipment, and this has gone through the entire state of Arizona. When the government's already run by the drug cartels, when you already have the Mormon Church and their lifelong affiliation with the people who run the cartels, this has gone on since the 1880s, when they had declared the Kingdom of Deseret had withdrawn from the United States, declared war on the U.S., fled the U.S. There are very few Mormons who are legal citizens anyway. They had all of the original Mormon families had lost their U.S. citizenship and had to sign loyalty oaths according to I believe it's the Edmunds Act, 1882. The Romney family fled to Mexico, and those relationships are alive and well. We published on VT a month or so ago, and you can find this on my YouTube and excuse the audio is poor, but listenable. But the history of the Romney family, dating back into this time, and their relationship with the drug cartels, their relationship with criminal organizations in Mexico, and how they go back generations. And this is an FBI briefing that we have on audio. And I'll tell you, there's no more dangerous job, by the way, than being an honest FBI agent. One of the things, going back to what we were discussing a few minutes ago, the Ted Gunderson thing, I've got people around me here that say Ted Gunderson was really, really great people. I read about him, I listen to his videos, and it seems that way, and that Stu is telling me that he was here to destroy the Patriot movement. What do you know about this stuff?
I know that Ted Gunderson never did anything that wasn't good for the Patriot movement. And Stu Webb, he attacked me because I was friends with Gunderson. He attacked me in the beginning, and after I told him to shut the fuck up and let me do my show, he's never talked to me again in a civil tone, at any rate. But
so he's decided to censor you.
Yes, yeah, they don't want. So who's he working for? The Jews? I don't know. I don't know who his father-in-law was. I don't care.
I don't know necessarily. Stu's had a tough time, but was he being blackmailed? Is he being blackmailed? I do know there are people after Stu. I can't get him to stay sensible for a long period of time. Was he an informant for someone before? Is he still whatever? You can't keep track of any of this, but when I look at like Hennigan or Santelli or Stu, and Stu's right about a lot of stuff. I mean, he's got this thing with the Millman Meisel thing that and it just turns people off, but he's not wrong about it. There is a satanic cult there, this child kidnapping satanic cult. He's right about this. But what we can't do is we can't create a cult of personality about a group of people who were blackmailed to become an FBI informant, whether he was one or not, or what. And it's a certain group of people within the internet. It's just not about this. We have bigger fish to fry with. We've got a very real war with ISIS. And if you want to problem
excuse me just a second here. Is that the same thing as the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, at least they're honest about it, aren't they? ISIS is coming. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. What are they trying to do right now? Stir up a world war between us and Russia? I mean, Russia was never our enemy, was it? Wasn't the Cold War just another whole false flag so they could sell atomic weapons to both countries?
Well, people try to understand what's going on by watching the news. Now, NBC was just caught. In 2012, they claimed that the Syrian government kidnapped two of their journalists. Now they're admitting it was really people tied to the U.S. paid FSA that kidnapped journalists, told them they were part of the Syrian government, and let them go. So the NBC knew better, has known better for 3 years, but has been blaming the Syrian government. CBS is continually blaming the Syrian government for using sarin gas. No, it's the U.S.-backed guys who used sarin gas. We know that gas was produced at the Lugar Labs, the National Reference Lab in Tbilisi, was brought into Syria and turned over to the rebels by 3 Ukrainian Secret Service people. We looked at what's going on in the Ukraine right now. The government in Kiev is murdering journalists. They've got a total crackdown on freedom of speech. That's the U.S.-led dictatorship in Kiev that the eastern Ukraine is standing against with our support here, by the way. We stand very much against them. why the U.S. has ended up on the wrong side there. Now, the U.S. is trying to work with Syria, and we're working to help them do that in whatever way we can, but have extreme restrictions because the U.S. just loves putting sanctions on everybody. Whenever Israel says, put sanctions on people, we do it. And with that, combined with a controlled press in the United States, the American people have no idea what's going on. So if you turn on 60 Minutes and you think you're going to learn about Syria, and Charlie Rose tells you that Assad ordered the killing of 220,000 of his own people, then are you going to believe Charlie Rose? Charlie Rose is a fabricationist and scumbag, like Christian Amanpour, like Wolf Blitzer, like Hannity, like the gang. If you can see them on TV, Peter Jennings, if you can see them on TV, they're lying to you. Simple as that. No one is ever on TV. You know, I remember a couple of years ago.
Let me ask you that about that. I wondered why the ADL gave me credit for starting the militias, which I did in the governor's office, but in New Mexico. But they never had me on TV. They had Norm Olson and, you know, you can have my gun when you pull it from my cold dead hands, but they never talked to me on TV. Nobody, the only time I ever got a call was when ABC called me to ask me if I knew anything about the shooting of Gabby Gifford. No, I don't know anything.
Do you know who was paying Norm, by the way? Norm was getting money from the cigarette lobby. Yeah, we caught this long ago. His chief of staff was Thomas R. Did you remember Thomas R. Wayne from the Michigan militia?
Yes. I brought Mark Kornke who pretty much started the Michigan militia. I brought him to Albuquerque to speak before the Wake Up America group there.
Well, Tom and I had been friends. Tom ran a public relations agency, by the way. That was his real job, but he was a Vietnam vet, Army Airborne, a heavy drinker. Oh, my God. Good guy, but life in free fall all the time, you know, and I would bail him out of things periodically, but, you know, because he was a vet, but a bright guy. And but as the Michigan militia filled with FBI informants to where there was almost nothing left, anyone involved began facing prison. But they went into this endless infighting thing, and eventually, this is what I just love about this. When Bush 43 took office, the Michigan militia disbanded because, you know, quote Norm here, because we finally have a president we can totally stand behind.
Oh, boy. And,
of course, 6 months later, these assholes blow up the World Trade Center, start these phony wars. The Patriot Acts are passed, the NDAA, they suspend the Constitution in 2005 by suspending habeas corpus. They set up the Department of Homeland Security, which spies on all of us. They spend billions on the NSA, begin a national, domestic spying organization beyond anything imaginable. And the Michigan militia welcomed it all. And then we learned for some time that their primary activity in Michigan was fighting against smoking prohibition in Michigan and Ohio, and they'd been taking money from the tobacco companies. But the only subject that they were interested in is because some of the people there were getting huge payoffs from the tobacco lobby. And their biggest freedom, they wanted the freedom to smoke where they wanted to. That was the big issue for the Michigan militia, were cigarettes in bars.
You know, what I told people, Gordon, I told people would call me up and say, and this is well over 15 years ago, Clay, do you know where I can find a militia? I said, well, you can look. But if there's more than 10 people in the militia and you haven't known every one of them your whole life, one of them is a Fed trying to set you up.
Oh, and Absolutely, and of course, what these organizations are, since their average IQ is around 60, and then and half of them are FBI informants, and then it will, if it isn't that from day number one, I assure you the FBI will sweep through a group. All you need is just to be behind on child support. If anybody doesn't know what just being behind on child support will do, and 1 out of 3 Americans is behind on child support, males between 18 and 55 owes child support, or has had a drunk driving conviction, or has a warrant for something somewhere. Doesn't take much to come to blows with the U.S. If you've ever smoked marijuana, they can find some way to extradite you to hell and prosecute you on it. And Clay, you know about that one, do you not?
I do know about that one. Clay, we can get you 7. I can get you 7 years. I can get you 7 years. If you go before a jury, you could get 99. You could get 99 for. So I fell for it. I volunteered for prison, and I wrote a couple of good books about that. Maybe it'll be released later this year, if I get the distribution for it.
Well, we can try to, as Veterans Today now is using our own servers. We're initially doing a nationwide radio network, and you saw we sent you an email on that today. We're signing hosts right now.
Yes, sir.
And then we're moving to television, and in this case, we're putting up money. I don't know about what to do about Chip and Stu, and it's a management issue. You know, I don't try to control what people say. I have no trouble with what Stu says, other than the fact he'd like to say that he runs VT, and VT has a board. The board runs Veterans Today. I run the board.
Well,
but I answer to the board.
Stu Webb is putting out, and they're being forwarded by friends of his that called you a liar. These friends of his are putting out Stu Webb on Veterans Today. It looks to me like he is just trying to steal your name. Use your name and build up his radio show.
Stu's received a cease and desist on this. He has no right to use the VT name. I have no problem with Stu saying what he wants to. And if people who wants to attack me, fine. Anyone who wants to listen to it, hey, they're welcome to this. Here's what I say about Veterans Today. You don't like what we say? Go someplace else. I don't need you. We don't want you to read. I don't want you there. We don't care. I don't need any idiots. You know, we're not a public network. Nobody's paying us here. You know, you don't see on Veterans Today, you don't see any donate button there. You don't see, we're not, although I will tell you, if you're capable of owning one legally, I'll sell you a military sniper rifle, which I expect you will end up in your gun case, and when people come over, you'll be showing it to people. And when you can afford the 308 or 7.62 or whatever ammunition, a lot of it, we do 5.56 and 300 blackout. We also sell carry pistols, stuff like this. We're a gun dealer. You know, we do this. We now have pistol classes. We run those. We do armaments specialist certificates that allow. We do paralegal training now. I mentioned we have a gunsmithing school, and you know, we're expanding to all of these things. We're definitely Second Amendment guys.
Let me say something here. You know, I just tried to watch Tom Cruise in Born on the 4th of July. I couldn't watch it all. Because, Gordon, I still have some guilt feelings when I go to Washington and I go to the Vietnam Vets Memorial. I can't hold back the tears. And I still feel somewhat guilty because I volunteered for Vietnam, and the government tried to kill me. The Army tried to kill me before I got there. Caught spinal meningitis. It took me 50 years, Gordon, to find out I really can have and do have veterans benefits. They withheld that from me for 50 years. Oh, you weren't in long enough. No, I got
Well, you needed to know someone that in that business. I don't know if you know this. Veterans Today is the official news outlet of the Department of Veterans Affairs. So, veterans information, VT does that. We are a veterans organization. And by the way, and I'm a 100% permanent and total disabled veteran, or as you'd say officially, a combat disabled veteran.
Well, I didn't go into combat, but I haven't held a job necessarily since I got out of the Army. I refuse to take orders from imbeciles and idiots anymore. And I was offered a pension if I went to Fort Hood, but they didn't send me to Fort Hood, and they didn't give me the pension.
Well, there's an issue here. The pension, if you had, and it's 50 years, if you had any paperwork about this, you should maybe get it to me. But
I've got all the paperwork.
The Army.
I've got the medical records from there, and I got the DD-214. And I wasn't always Clay Douglas when I was in the Army. I had another name, and I've got all the paperwork where I changed it legally to Clay Douglas as my stage name, I guess.
Oh, my God. Isidore Goldstein. Oh, God. Is that what it says? Was that your real name, Clay?
No.
Okay, just check.
No, it's Horace Helms. I mean, I kind of freaked out when Jade Helm came about. I said, oh, my God, now the Jews are using my old name against me. Jade Helm. That was the name I was in the Army with. W.H. Helms, Jr.
Well, let's see. Were you hospitalized for spinal meningitis?
Yes, sir. I had a black sergeant, by the way. His name was Sergeant Odom. He didn't think I was sick, so I was the last one in on the bus. We were out on bivouac when I got sick, and he tried to humiliate me in front of the whole platoon. Give me some push-ups there. I'm sorry, I can't even lace my boots, much less do push-ups. And I walked in. I was the last one of the doctor's office. The doctor looked at me and said, what seems to be the problem, son? I said, I'm sick, you son of a bitch, and passed out. I woke up in a bed of ice, and with the corpsman complaining about them freezing, I opened one eye and said, you should be in this fucking ice here. And
okay, now let's take a moment here and jump into this. Related to your spinal meningitis, if you have, does your DD-214 indicate that you have a medical-related discharge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have symptoms from your spinal meningitis that you feel affect your employability?
Yes, sir.
Then I strongly suggest that you go to va.gov and file a disability claim. And I tell you to be absolutely truthful in everything you file on this claim. Go to va.gov, go to do this online, the disability claims section, and file a disability compensation claim, citing the findings, citing the symptomology, and then be ready to supply any information about how this has impacted your life, including other medical people you've seen, but file this claim.
I am waiting right now for my medical records. I've applied with the VA hospital in Big Spring.
You do not require your medical records to file a claim.
Okay.
See, the back payment date begins the day you file that claim. Okay? Hear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want you to go online and file the claim. And since you're a bright guy, you'll be able to get through the website. It's not hard to do, but do that initially. Okay? Don't worry about the medical records. They will show up. When you go for a comp and pension hearing, they will have all of your medical records there. If you have a DD-214 that says what you indicate it says, and they don't have your medical records, that's going to be a problem. Now,
they do have them. They've sent them to me. I've got them here somewhere. I'm looking for them right now, and I've applied for them again.
The first thing you do is file.
Okay.
The first thing you do is file. So when you get off here, go to va.gov and you file. Okay. You begin the process.
Yes,
right?
sir. I will do that.
And then from there, when you were off the air, you can get with me about how to continue with that process, and they will either award you a disability that's adequate or one that's not, or deny you, either way, and then we enter an appeals process, which will require an attorney. And
the DAV with their office over here in the Veterans Hospital here in Big Spring, have said they will help me and work with me on this.
Okay, do check in with me also. The DAV is one of the better organizations we have found. In many cases, the people with the American Legion, to some extent, to a large extent, the VFW to a lesser extent, lack the competence to fill out any of these forms. I am suggesting that you file by yourself, because it's the only way you'll know it's really filed if you file online, because these service organizations will say they file and then forget.
That will be done today, Gordon.
Do that right now, then meet with them and go over this. And when you have a comp and pension hearing, you will have a physical examination there. And during the period after you file, you're going to supply statements indicating how this has affected you. You're going to be interviewed on that. But I have just reviewed some case law while we're online. Yes, I'm still able to multitask. And there are disabilities from military-related spinal meningitis, and you should familiarize yourself with that. And this is service connection for meningococemia, meningitis, medical evidence for it. And people have filed 40 plus years. Typically takes out people's hearings. I look at this one here. Here's a 20% disability someone was given. But it depends on your symptoms. What I will tell you not to do is do not exaggerate and do not lie on anything with a VA, because if they have a reason to not like you for something else, they will use this against you.
You know, let me ask you about one other thing. Now, this happened within all the week, the spinal meningitis and the hospital stay. You know, I had a guy next to me screaming. I called an orderly, and I said, "Can't you do something for this guy?" And the guy looked at me and said, "You're in worse shape than he is. You got the strength to scream." It's, this whole thing, I mean, when I got out, I didn't go to Fort Hood. I wasn't said anything. And I really have never held a job since then. Physically, everything seemed to be fine.
Since we're online here, let me jump in, because what I'm saying is, because I'm saying it's more important than what you're saying.
Okay.
But you're going to have to prove either psychiatric or physiological disabilities directly related to meningitis. And in this point, there is you're going to be dealing with both a psychiatrist and a specialist in internal medicine. And the evidence that you produce from these years is going to have to support, and this is where you have to learn about this, is going to have to support a diagnosis of service-related disability, which can be psychiatric, which is tied to symptoms directly related to your spinal meningitis. And this with the terms here, medical evidence is not, and this is a denial. I'll read one off a form here. Additionally, the other medical evidence does not establish that a veteran is suffering from any disability, disease, or disorder secondary to meningitis. And that's what it has to be. You have to have a secondary disorder. Furthermore, the evidence does not confirm the presence of any manifestations or symptoms related to. So in this case, You know what your situation is. We're on the air. Since this is something we're openly discussing, you don't really care anyway. Isn't much you won't say, but you're going to have to learn as much as possible about the disease of meningitis. You're going to have to read some case law on for other veterans, and it's all online here. Easy, just type in meningitis veteran, and it'll all come up. And you will see which things apply and what they will be looking for in this examination. You may get advice from the Disabled Veterans of America that will aid you or not, depending on who the service officer is, but typically not better than you'll be able to find out. It would be my hope that some of the things that have affected you and your employability over these decades are things that are genuinely related, but you will have to support that. And it's the luck of the draw sometimes, who you see at the medical examination. And this is a problem we have, depending on who the guy is there, they either like you or they don't, and that's a scary thing. If it's someone that likes you and he's taken the time to look into it, you could be given a disability, and if not, they just tell you to get the hell out of there. And it's a tough one for veterans. It's a tough process. I'd like to see every veteran paid for some reason, and one thing I don't advocate is that people file for disability claims where they have nothing coming. Now, Clay, you have a belief that you do, and your ability to support that will be helpful. For those of you who don't file. If you do, file and file accurately. Do not tell stories to federal employees. I'm just telling you, Clay, tell them why not to lie to a federal employee.
I don't lie. And the Sergeant Odom, I still remember.
Why are we telling the people in the audience that they are not to lie to federal employees?
I don't lie anyway.
Because it's felony perjury.
Okay.
Okay. You'll do 5 years if you lie to someone during a VA comp exam or write something inaccurate, purposefully inaccurate, on a federal filing.
The drill instructor, the Sergeant Odom, was busted down from a drill sergeant to a mess hall sergeant. Last 2 weeks I was in the Army, I'd go through the line and look him in the eye and say, "More potatoes, Sarge. Now you think I was sick, you son of a bitch?"
Well, were this a lawsuit, the egregious, and that's the term we use, the egregious behavior, which may or may not still exist in Army records somewhere, could be considered reasonable. You may have the opportunity to tell that story or not, and I think it's valid as part of your filing, but it's clear that you need to medically establish what's going on. Now, do you have a doctor you can talk to about this without having to pay them every cent you've ever had in your life?
I have Medicare and Medicaid now. That's operational. And now I have VA benefits, so I can go over here to the VA hospital behind me here and and talk with a doctor now. Took me 50 years to get that far, but, I'm there now.
Well, and do this. Now, we're running long here right now, if you know that or not.
We're running what?
We're over an hour right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. A key thing is to get the filing done, and I know I've said that 3 times, but I've had to tell people 50 and they've never done it. But to get the filing done, and I have a service officer. This has been doing this for an awful long time. Been through a lot of this. We don't have many people who are in your circumstance where they've been kicked to the curb for such a long time. With younger veterans, tell people in the audience what your monthly pay was when you were in the Army.
I think it was about $200. I don't remember exactly.
It was 60.
64.
Yep, there, not $200. $200 would have been a non-commissioned officer serving in Vietnam got $200 a month. And God only knows, before I went into the military, I was making, I don't know, $250 a week or whatever. The point being is that we were working for way under minimum wage, way under minimum wage, in combat under minimum wage. And the troops now, we've got guys making $150,000 a year as NCOs now, and civilian pay. And this is one of my things I want to harp on is minimum wage. I find it disturbing that so many people who like to adhere themselves to right-wing politics. Are you familiar with what? And I'm thinking no here, but what's happened with Obamacare?
I don't know exactly what's going on with that. It hasn't seemed to affect me. I certainly didn't sign up for it. I certainly didn't go to the website, and I don't do any business with Nigeria.
If you did, you'd have more insurance and pay nothing for it, because they'd pay it for you.
I don't pay anything for insurance. I have never paid anything
first of all,
insurance.
You know that Obamacare is funding your Obamacare funds your Medicaid. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No, sir.
Oh yeah. Do you know that 22 million Americans are on Obamacare now, and that the Republican Party has given up their opposition to Obamacare for two reasons. One, because it's been an absolutely huge success, and people are really happy with it, and they're afraid of burning the party down, so they're trying to creep into the shadows. Jeb Bush, heaven forbid, is one of the biggest advocates of Obamacare. But anyone who spoke against it did so because they were being bribed by the insurance lobby. Obamacare is a standing huge success. Huge. And
let me ask you about Obama right now. It seems after the performance of Benjamin Netanyahu in front of our Congress with multiple standing ovations, seems like they're really going out of their way to demonize Obama more now, because maybe Obama's not exactly going along with Israel's plan. What's going on there?
He never has. That's the whole point. And these right-wingers here that claim to be patriots and anti-Israel have all been actually pro-Israel and traitors. The patriot movement is the biggest pack of traitors this country's ever had, out of just absolute stupidity. If they think they can be a slave to the Israel lobby, work for Wall Street, and if you don't think the Republican Party and Tea Party are Wall Street, then you're too stupid to live. Walk off a bridge somewhere, please. Certainly don't come to Veterans Day if you don't know that the Republican Party is evil. If you want to know, hey, Dianne Feinstein stood up to Netanyahu, and not one Republican did. Dianne Feinstein, you're supposed to hate Dianne Feinstein. She told him to screw himself.
Let me ask you, somebody in the chat room has asked about this earlier, and of course this is what kind of shaped what I did, not just what happened to me in the Army, but when I saw what happened at Waco, I was outraged. Where's the Texas Rangers? Where's the DPS? Where's the Sheriff Department? Why are they letting them do this? And then the media wanted you to believe that the Army had to go in and kill those 17 little children to save them from a child molester. That's why I started the Free American, this radio show, the magazine, and everything, and the militia, by the way. Now, what happened at Waco? Was that, I call that a psychological operation against the American people to see what we would stand for, and that's kind of what I see Jade Helm being here. What happened at Waco?
Oh, Jade Helm, we'll go to the Jade Helm. Your statement about Jade Helm is inaccurate.
Okay.
Jade Helm if you want to go to the conspiracies, let's jump to conspiracies, since one of the things about Jade Helm is I believe that someone within the Army working with the Republican Party, the Israelis, and traitors within the Patriot movement, traitors, and most people are police informants and getting payoffs somehow, especially the most vocal. And these are some sad little broken people here. This is all they've got to do, you know, and this is fine. But Jade Helm is a tiny little military operation, and everyone that's opened their mouth about this, I am going to torture them till the end of their days. 10 million Americans are supposed to be marched out of their homes and put in FEMA camps by 1,200 National Guardsmen and 11 Navy SEALs. 11 Navy SEAls that are, what are they going to be doing? They're driving around, taking pictures. It's summer. They do goofy. Now, if you want to know what a military operation is to the morons out there, and this is, I'm talking down to you. I talk down to morons. If you're not a moron, I'm not saying that you are then. But if you are, you'll know what you are. Every summer, the National Guard of Michigan, Ohio, Indiana go to Camp Grayling for a 2-week camp out. Along with nearly every prostitute in the United States heads up to Grayling. They go for deer season, and nice area, by the way. Grayling, Gaylord, Michigan, Houghton Lake, nice area. Camp Grayling's a huge facility. Now, when they go up there, it creates a traffic jam on I-75 because the convoys heading up are 35 miles long. They've been doing it since 1952. Now, these go on every summer all over the U.S. They run hundreds of these things. Now, this big, this normal operation, which goes on every summer, is 1,000 times bigger than Jade Helm. These are huge units. We have 180,000 troops who've been brought back to the U.S. in the last 4 years. They're all going to be on some kind of summer operation. So what am I going to have? Morons and idiots with their phone cameras out taking pictures of these. And I'm close to I-75, and these gasoline trucks and aging Humvees that have been driven all over Iraq for years are broken down at the side of the road. Axles have fallen off, hydraulic system break. They run out of fuel. They run into each other because they're all higher than shit anyway. These aren't kids. This is fine. But we're supposed to be worried about this because we've got Alex Jones and Common Sludge and whatever these conspiracy idiots are telling us. Well, 1,000 times worse than Jade Helm has been going on all the time. The military does operations inside the U.S. all the time.
Now, let me ask you about this. I think this has been happening here. You're absolutely right.
I've got a personal story here. This is a personal story.
All right, go ahead.
I was in New York when they released low-level sarin gas on the New York subway. You're aware they did that, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I was at the Bowling Green station when that was done with my wife. I was staying at Fort Wadsworth. I was Fort Wentworth on Staten Island, by the way. The Homeland Security was hosting me in a rather nice home there. I preferred staying there to staying in hotels in Manhattan. First of all, it's a lot cheaper, but there's a really great deli on. Anyway, that's another story here. Getting off the, it's 2 in the morning. I'm getting off the subway. I've got to take the Staten Island ferry, which after 11 leaves only, I think, once an hour or whatever. And so I've got to run to catch the ferry, which, you know, and this is, I don't know, I was probably 55 at the time. I could still run. I'm heading out of the car. We get hit with Sarah, and my wife's an RN, and everyone around us went to their knees, just drop like a rock. I get up, and going up the stairs, your legs are freezing, they're like turning to jello, and having to cough to continue to breathe. And as I get to the surface, I can now get a little bit of air. But this is on extremely, just a very few parts per million, and I mean just knocked you down like being hit with a bus. I was in it, and my wife's a runner, and she had trouble doing this. She does a 6-minute mile, and this was quite an experience. And it started to clear up, then the head started to pound. And it's about 2 blocks to get to the ferry station. But it was I can't even describe how unpleasant this was. And this was them just thinking they could get away with it. Years before this, they'd released cold and flu viruses down there to check how those worked. But it's a common experiment. They do this all the time.
Isn't that exactly what's happening with the chemtrails? They're putting in some form of flu. Because I followed it. When they sprayed, I'd watch the newspapers, and people starting coming down with pneumonia or flus or whatever.
Oh, well, we know they sprayed LSD really happened, by the way, over a town in southern France as an experiment. They just sprayed them down with LSD.
I'm sorry I missed that. I kind of had some good times on LSD.
Oh, my God. I've got my own little stories there saying, you're a better man than I am. It's, I think, psychedelic drugs should be brought back because I think they provide people a balance. This is a serious problem that people have just gone batshit crazy. I'm sitting here with VT is not, our real job. I'm with the Damus Defense Group out of Switzerland. We run a private intelligence agency, and our clients are pro-U.S. governments primarily. We can't do business with anyone else, frankly. We're restricted from that. And I admit that some of the people within our group are American spies. We know that. And I don't have any problem seeing to it that the U.S. has accurate intelligence for the first time ever, because all that Bush did was hire criminals to lie to the U.S. to justify the U.S. doing the bidding of the state of Israel. That's what all of that is about. And that's when I think about the Michigan militia and how, the Michigan militia was a Zionist front. It's all they ever were. Most of the militias, by the time they ended up, and I don't care if they started out as the white supremacist, we hate the mud people things. By the time, those are the easiest people to be controlled. One of the things, this is an area where Clay and I look at things somewhat differently, but not that differently. On Veterans Today, we are, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool, and frankly, let me do one of my attacks at organized religion here. Okay. And this is just a personal experience thing. I've had people around me here that are fanatical Christians, and here's the thing. Well, I used to screw little kids until I became a Christian, and then I stopped. Or I used to get drunk and steal, beat people. I've crashed a car. I spent 5 years in prison for killing people while drunk. And then I found religion and I stopped. Well, I was a drug addict, and then I found religion and I stopped. Well, I used to cheat people all the time, and I found religion and I stopped. And then since you're not religious, you must be all of those things. And I'm thinking, no, I've always been an atheist all of my life, and I've never driven drunk. I've never been to prison. I don't commit felonies. I have been a volunteer working for veterans for a long time. I give more money to charity than anyone would want to know. It's a lot. I'm an animal rights activist. I certainly stand against as much wrong as I can find.
Right.
I am utterly unbribable. Of course, some of that because I'm frankly wealthy, which is nice. But
while we're on that subject here, Gordon, I could certainly use an extra $200 in my donate box on the freeamerican.com today. I've got some expenses coming up here that I need to cover.
You're not going to ask me for money,
I'm asking anybody for money.
Unless you can prove that you need more than everyone else on earth, okay? And that's and it's down to that. But I spent 5 years as a unpaid as a UN officer working on refugee affairs. But you deal with human suffering. There's human suffering out there beyond imagination. We don't get it. We don't begin to get a look. If you have electricity or water, you're in the upper 5% in this world. You don't have a clue. There are human trafficking, narcotics trafficking, the number of people in this world that are working as slave laborers, and Israel has almost 1 million guest laborers, and a percentage of them, not all of them, and we don't have to blanket, there's no reason to attack Israel unnecessarily, but as with countries like Kuwait, Israel treats their guest workers like trash, like prisoners. But they're not the only one. If you can't be fair and you can't be accurate, you kind of not say things because you're only going to make everything worse. And God only knows. People don't need to hear everything. But what I find, and I remember this is a common prison thing. I don't have to tell you about prison, okay? The people that carry Bibles around in their hand are child molesters. That's who does this. The people that run the religious organizations in prison are all people that are there for murdering children in sex crimes. Those are the ones. The people that, and this is I've got a place in Kentucky, in a very religious county, and I've got a horse farm down there, and down there you have two kinds of people. You got church people. And then you got the meth dealers and others, and the church people are good, and I try to understand how this works down there, okay? And then you can have a meth dealer become a church person when they find Jesus, and I guess you're allowed to do that. I'm not here to tell people what to do, but I'm not going to listen to people who use religion as a crutch because they're sociopaths. And that they've been burned, they've gone to jail too many times, or they're at too much risk, but they can't afford to get away with the crimes they enjoy anymore. They use religion to hide behind, and I've run into huge numbers of those people. So when someone tells me they're religious, I figure, and I'm in the car with them, I figure I might have to deal with them at some time, because I may be dealing with a sociopath. I may be dealing with someone that's dangerous. That's what I assume when I hear a religious person, that they believe in things that aren't real, that they're prone toward violence, like the ISIS people, or like the Americans who went to Afghanistan and Iraq and killed so many civilians because of their religion. So when I hear about religion and Christianity, I begin to suspect that I might be dealing with a potential mass murderer or someone whose God, their imaginary God, is going to tell them that they have to kill people, or that it's perfectly okay to have sex with small children because you can be forgiven for it. And
I've got friends that are started the Little Red Schoolhouse, the Timothy Bible College. Dr. Jake Wade has been a good friend of mine for many years. I helped him start the Little Red Schoolhouse. And if our children went to school like the Little Red Schoolhouse, used the internet, we wouldn't have any Columbines. He calls the Bible his answer book. And I believe it's a great source of history about tyrannies over the last few thousand years.
Well, you mean the Bible? Do you actually read the Bible? Because I'm a religious scholar, and I tend to not think so favorably of the Bible because I'm familiar with the origins of the Bible and how much of it was made up, how censored. It's the most censored document on earth.
I came to the conclusion, let me ask you about this real quick. I came to the conclusion that at the Council of Nicaea, they promoted Jesus to God because they didn't want men like you and I aspiring to be the kind of man he was. So they made him, put him up in God category.
That's exactly my point. Exactly, the Council of Nicaea. Unless you have, it's accessing the books of the Apocrypha. There was a reason that most of the Gospel of Magdalene, Mary, the Gospel of Mary was destroyed. The Gospel of Thomas, found at Nag Hammadi. And a simple question for your local preacher here: who was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Were they apostles? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were they the apostles? Wrote the Gospels. You know, I'm trying, Jesus Christ Superstar. I want to be an apostle and write a gospel. Well, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John never met Jesus. They were not apostles. And
how about Pauline Christianity? Most of the people.
Oh my God, Paul! That's another guy.
I'm sorry. Let me call him Saul, the Pharisee that Jesus railed against. And I said the reason he fell off his donkey, it hit him on the road to Damascus. That I don't have to kill these Christians. I can take it over. My opinion.
Paul was an interesting guy, and his letters to the
Ephesians.
And if anyone's ever been there, yeah, Ephesus is was a Greek city in western Turkey. It's right next to the Turkish town of Seljuk, and if you go there, now it's a 2-star hotel, the Canberra Hotel. It's a place where the guys who go, and they don't go so often anymore because not many are alive, but I would go there for the the veterans meetings of the Anzac, the veterans of the 1915 Gallipoli campaign would stay there. But friends of mine own the hotel. I've got friends there in Turkey, and it's a fun town. Turkey's a good visit, by the way. First of all, $35 a night for hotels, $6 restaurant meals. The original Church of St. John is there in town. St. John's an interesting character. If you want to, and this is the Apostle John, the one that people say is gay or not gay or whatever. The one that in the Last Supper they say it's John and it's really Magdalene. The breast and long hair should kind of let you know that it's a woman. But another thing about the Bible. Anyone out there ever talk about the whore Mary Magdalene? If any of you have ever had a searchable, a Bible search engine, and I'm trying to think of the one that I use here right now, but I keep one in here, bring up all references to Magdalene in the Bible. And there was never a reference to Magdalene being a whore in the Bible. That's a Bible story that was created in the 8th century by the Catholic Church. Things people don't know. Well, the Bishop of Rome. Christianity that we live with now is an offshoot or a reformed version of the Greco-Roman religion, where the Jesus we have is a combination of the god Mithra. It's a little bit of Hercules, but it has little or nothing to do with whatever Christianity is. There's I spent a couple of years, a little more than that actually, researching early Christianity. It's an interesting period historically when the world kind of got set off its edge there. Uh, the stories about Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea, there is no such place as Arimathea, going to Britain and establishing the first Christian church at oh God, what is the town now where Arthur and Guinevere are buried? People will come back. I'm having a brain freeze here. Go into Google, and here's what you do to research lapses in my memory: Tomb of Arthur and Guinevere in Glastonbury. Years ago, Glastonbury was a cute little town with a cathedral that had been knocked down by Henry VIII. On the grounds of the cathedral are the supposed tomb of Arthur and Guinevere. South of town, about 30 miles on the Camel River, is an Iron Age hill fort that is supposed to have been Camelot. An interesting visit, very hard to find, right off the M4. If you get to Britain and you have a chance to do that, you can see that in the same day. You can tour Avebury. You can go to well, how many different things we have to look at there. But Stonehenge is only a few miles away, and the town of Glastonbury, which has grown a little bit too much. But outside of Glastonbury, right at the edge of town, is a conical hill with a tower on it called Glastonbury Tor. When sea levels were higher, it is quite possible that, this was the story, is that the Tor was an island. Now, when you go around this area, you find it's a lowland, and it's heavily ditched, like it is in Belgium and the Flemish areas. And the coast could have and would have crept into that area, and that area could have been underwater. I don't know if you could get a ship in there, but it was, and it's well inland, way inland. But the idea is that the island of Avalon, which would have been Glastonbury, was where Christianity found its origins. One of the stories about Christianity few understand, and I will, this is a great story. What do you know about St. Patrick? And Clay, hell, you're one of the brightest guys out here for wherever the hell you come from. St. Patrick was a Roman slave, okay?
Okay.
Who went to Ireland and established Ireland as a Christian nation, made the stakes leave Ireland. And in the end, after Christianizing Ireland, in one of the islands between Ireland and Scotland called Iona, they built a large cathedral, and that is where Christianity in Europe was headquartered. Now, at the same time, in I think it's 315 or whatever, that's when Constantine decided, and people can correct me on the date, I'm a year or so off maybe, Constantine decided to accept Christianity for the Eastern Empire, because the Western Empire, at that time only a few hundred people lived in Rome, and most of them were zombies. Rome was evacuated. Nobody was left in Italy. Italy had gone to hell. There was no Rome, there was no Italy. There was only the Eastern Empire, where they spoke Greek and Aramaic. And there were no Jews in Palestine at the time either. You know, not very many anyway. There were only Christians. And we're saying that the Jews pretty much all converted to Christianity. Eventually. They may not have by 80 AD, but there was no being, you know, and the Romans and the Jews, I mean, this was quite a war here, and as an historical period, you know, there is much to this that's very real. But the people of Palestine, Judea, Israel, whatever you wish to call it, changed religions more than once and did not flee. And all that were in let's say the 4th, 5th, 6th century, 7th century to a point, All of the people living in Palestine, all of them were Christian. They did not have Jews there. There was one time, at one point, there were not a single Jew living in the... Now, whether these people were part of the original Jewish tribe or tribes, since, you know, most of them disappeared theoretically, if you believe anything in the Old Testament, which I wouldn't recommend you do. But...
excuse me, the Old Testament, as far as I'm concerned, the Old Testament, we may have been really led down the primrose path here by thinking of Yahweh as a God. I think it was Satan telling us he was God and trying to control us. How about that?
Well, that's a reasonable hypothesis, not one I can necessarily support. But back to Ireland, there was, in all of Europe, there was only one Christian country, one Christian community in all of Europe. Not Italy, it was Ireland. And Ireland took Christianity to Scotland first. Scotland was the second, not Britain, Scotland. The Scots were the second Christian community. And it was the Irish monks took Christianity to France, to Germany, and to Italy. All of the abbeys that were built, Christianity would never have gone to Europe. Christianity came not from the Middle East, not from Jerusalem. Christianity came from Ireland. Christianity, as we know it, originated in Ireland. That's where it's from. And if you watch the British show Heartbeat, based on the Buddy Holly song, and if you can't find a way to watch it, it's a great soap from the 1990s, about the 1960s, but it's set in an area around the town of Whitby. Now, for those of you who love fiction, Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's Whitby Abbey, the ruins of Whitby Abbey, where Dracula's coffin was moved when he came over from Transylvania and ate all the people on the ship and came. And anyway, that's where Dracula lived, in Whitby Abbey. Whitby Abbey is important, and it's a ruin along Britain's North Sea coast, because it was in Whitby Abbey when the Irish monks and the and let's see if I can get this my religious education. I've got a computer in front of me. Whitby Abbey, Easter. There was a battle, the Synod of Whitby. Here we go, in Wikipedia, and we will read this for you. This is important to. It was a 7th century, that's in the 600s, Northumbrian, that's northern Britain, Synod, where King Oswiu, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that one, of Northumbria, ruled the kingdom, would calculate Easter and observe the monastic tonsure according to the customs of Rome. Well, the Irish, more or less, there was a fight over when Easter would be. And you could use as Easter one of the Roman pagan dates, or you could use the date that was, let's say, supportable through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which I don't necessarily go with. Well, the Irish lost. And at the Synod of Whitby, they took on the other date, and the Irish took their marbles, went home, and pretty much decided to stay out of their way. And these were the Ionian missionaries. And this was where Christianity was. This is that other synod in 664 A.D. And after somebody's death here, but where these decisions were initially made about when Easter would be and the direction of the church. And as the Irish church withdrew and the Roman church took preeminence, it's where the monstrosity was created. when Martin Luther, nailed his little covenants on the church door and decided to work to sort of reform the pagan religion known as Catholicism, and the one that we found, of course, has molested millions of children, murdered. Until the 1960s, the British used to collect kids. If you were accused of not taking care of your kids, they'd take them away, put them on boats, send them to in the 60s, 70s even, to Australia, turn them over to the church. The church was working them to death, raping them every day, and then murdering them. I don't know if you've heard about this. This is the kind of thing we're doing, and this went on well into our lifetime. This kind of insanity.
Well, let me jump back here for a few, probably a few hundred years. It was the church that destroyed South America, and the civilizations in South America were more advanced than anything we can do today. I mean, we can't build pyramids on top of mountains. We can't move multi-ton blocks, and the conquistadors went in there and murdered those people, and murdered we had civilizations, native indigenous Americans, civilizations up and down the Mississippi River that were as large and as sophisticated as anything we got today, didn't we?
Absolutely. And my wife's from Chillicothe, and it's they have the we call them the mound builders.
Yes.
We had cities in the U.S., and of course the varying things were wiped out by the disease brought by Europeans. But the Europeans, and this is who we are, and it's like the white thing. If you think white people are going to take over the earth, go to Walmart and look around. Get your phone out, start taking pictures around there. If we want to rule the world, we're going to have to get smarter. There's little question about this. We were talking earlier here, and we lost our other guy here, but about Syria. Most of the people in Syria and Lebanon are entirely European. They're certainly more European than people from Bulgaria. You go to Finland. I mean, hey, Europe was invaded many times. There are very few people who don't have some sort of Asiatic bent. The Balkans were controlled by the Turks for, hundreds of years. Turkey is Turkish people, by the standards of most of who live in Europe, are certainly, European. Technically, within India and Pakistan, Afghanistan, if you use the term Aryan, these are Aryan people. You will find there are certainly people who look very different than Europeans, but a very significant number of people in Pakistan and India are very European in appearance. If you travel in and out of the Middle East, and I travel pretty much everywhere, you'll be surprised at how many people have European features. Excuse me, I'm allergy days here, but we lose track of who these civilizations were and how people got to where they are. Nobody lived in Western Europe. If you're wondering where the Khazarians, which are the Jewish people, come from, they come from areas north of the Caucasus and near the lower ranges of the Volga River. The Rus, who make the Nordic people, not necessarily the Slavic Nordic people, but they come from an area no more than 150 miles away, which means, like people didn't have sex with each other then. But and those are the Vikings, and they moved from there into Finland and Denmark and northern Germany, around the Baltic. And then, of course, the Huns, the invasions, they moved into throughout Eastern Europe, Hungary, You want to see languages? Try to read a sign in Hungary. We've got family in Hungary. I've got a daughter-in-law who's Hungarian, and I've got grandkids that are waking, that now barely can pronounce a W because their mother's got such a powerful Hungarian accent. But the Finns and Hungarians are still, from a linguistic group, very much Asiatic. You go across Russia, and you get any group of people together, and you can go from blonde hair and blue eyes to the slightly broader Slavic faces to people who are genuinely Mongol.
Now let me. We only have about 5 minutes left. What is happening right now with the whole situation in the Ukraine and Russia? Is that the Ashkenazis, Jews, trying to take back over their homeland of Khazaria, which is right where Georgia and is right now?
It is. Yes, it is. Israel is threatening to send advanced weapons there. Putin is telling them, well, you can if you want to, I mean, he's got his own little plan there. But what is happening here, and I hate this simply because the Ukrainian people have gone through hell, but the Ukrainians persecuted the Poles at one time. The Poles persecuted the Ukrainians. There is hate that can go back 600 years here. If you want to, you don't want to read the history. You won't believe what you don't know until you actually read this. But there is a tremendous amount of hate back and forth. All of it's legitimate. If you want to legitimize hate, everyone's got a reason to hate each other or kill everyone. Everyone does. The Russians did persecute the Ukrainians. Absolutely. The Ukrainians did join with the Nazis. Was there a reason to join the Nazis against Stalin? Well, probably yes. Stalin had been killing Ukrainians for a long time before the Nazis invaded. Did they have a reason to be pissed off? Absolutely. Now, the Poles are angry at the Ukrainians now because the Ukrainians are, the political group now, are claiming allegiance to groups that in the last century had killed tens of thousands, butchered tens of thousands of Poles. So people don't see the geography here, but the northern and western parts of Ukraine were at one time part of Poland, and Poland has come and gone as a country many times, but they're tightly tied together with religion. In these areas of the world, by the way, whether you're in Russia, Poland, or the Ukraine, every church is full all day, all the time. These are exceedingly religious people. But there is this government in Kiev, and I don't hate the Ukrainian people. I have tremendous respect for them. And I don't believe that the Russians should be ruling the world by any means. But the gang in Kiev is under the thumb of the Israelis. They're under the thumb of, we'll get into the DVD, the Bush family group set up in the late 20s and early 30s. And we'll have to discuss what this is. Something I didn't believe in until we found evidence that they exist and how powerful they are, and that's for another show. And it's where, and someone will tell me something and I don't see it, so I can say, hey, you're totally full of shit. Or I can say, I'm going to keep my mouth shut until I have more information. And so we found that Fulford and Shrimpton and Chris Story were right all along. And I didn't know it, I didn't believe what they were saying, and I found out different. That there is a group set up in the late 1920s and 1930s initially by Prescott Bush that, and there's a question here about did they control Hitler or not? That's one of the questions. But there were huge financial ties between the takeover of Germany by the Nazi Party and massive influxes of funding from the London-based Rothschild banks, done in coordination with the Bush family. And these things we have to work out. But there is currently, we have found that Germany has been trading with Israel. Israel has been building nuclear weapons for Germany, and that Germany has a nuclear arsenal under the control of an extremist gang that runs Germany, our liberal democracy there. Germany is not who they seem to be. Germany is run by a gang, and we'll get into that at some other point. We're at the end of, what's 2 hours here?
That's 2 hours. We're out of time. Gordon Duff has been my guest today. And if you want to know who the Nazis are, I would suggest you study Ashkenazi Jews that control the world right now and run the Zionist or Khazarian mafia. How about that, Gordon?
There is a full and total partnership between the worst groups in both Germany and Israel. And I won't say it is all the people, since Germany, hell, you know, I'm one of them. And I've got kids that are German citizens. I've got grandchildren that are German citizens. And, you know, Germany's a great country. The people there are wonderful, certainly, wherever the hell they came from.
My whole family
none of them are Germans.
My whole family came from Germany about 100 years ago, the Bars and the Wolves. God bless you. Thank you for being on my show, and I'm looking forward to promoting this show and more on Veterans Today. God bless you, Gordon Duff.
God has to take his chances like everyone else.
Yep. See ya. Hey, knock it off.